Hello, my name is nursyuha binti Lubis, and I'll be sharing about my game pitch for game design. So firstly, one of the games that I've researched on is going to be Banana Kong. And Banana Kong is an endless side-scrolling runner. You run, jump, and swing as far as possible, collecting bananas to buy upgrades, avoiding obstacles, all to help Banana Kong stay safe from a banana avalanche, as shown in the video. So next, for the game mechanism, the player can jump, drop, and glide through obstacles such as rocks, spider webs, and vines. So for the game mechanism also, here's an example of jumping in the game. Next will be an example of dropping in the game. And lastly will be an example of gliding in the game. So next, for the game mechanism, as the player collects bananas, a power dash bar is filled up. So once it's full, the player can dash forward to break obstacles. So as you can see on the top left, the dash bar is full, in which the player can dash forward through obstacles, as shown in the video. So next is the game controls. So you tap or hold to jump. You can swipe down to drop, and you can swipe to the right to activate the power dash. So next, for the challenges would be the fast-paced gameplay that requires instant reaction time and the random level generation that keeps it unpredictable. So here's an example of an obstacle randomly dropping that caused the player to lose. Next, for the unique features is branching paths where you can go underground or underwater. So here's an example of a branching path to a different underground area. Another unique feature is that there are some animals that the player can ride for short boosts. So here's an example of the player getting a boost from a toucan. So the next game that I researched on would be Tomb of the Mask. So the objective of this game is to venture through a tomb to reach the end of each level filled with enemies and collect coins and stars. So the game mechanism is that the player moves in straight lines and sticks to the walls. There could be traps like spikes, ghosts, and more as you progress in the game. So you collect coins and power-ups. Here is an example of collecting coins. And for the game controls, you swipe right, left, down, and up to move in the direction until the character hits a wall. So the challenges is that the game requires timing and puzzle solving to successfully navigate through a level. So here's an example of a harder level in the game. So unique features would be the retro pixel art with neon colors, power-ups such as shields and magnets. So here's an example of a shield power-up in the game. So next will be my game design. So the name of the game will be Fish for a Restaurant. So here's a win scenario. So for the game interface, on the top left there will be 3 lives for the player, and on the top right hand corner there will be the amount of seasoning that has been collected. And then there will be the arrow up and down and a jump button, and those will also be the controls. So the main objective of the game is to make sure the fish reaches the end and collects all the seasonings to reach the restaurant so that the player can get a new dish for their restaurant. So the win scenario would be that all the seasoning is collected. So the first seasoning is collected and it will be reflected on the top right hand corner. Second, and the player accidentally hits an enemy, which means a life is lost. But not to be fret, the player is not lost yet. So last seasoning, and here you go, stage 1 is cleared and a new recipe is unlocked. So I think that this is the unique feature for my game, as you're not only playing as the fish, where you're making sure that you don't hit your enemies and you collect all the seasonings, you also get to have your own restaurant where you get new recipes based on the fish that you collect. So a lose scenario would be that all the lives would be lost. So the player hits an enemy, loses a life, hits another enemy, loses a life, and hits the last enemy and loses the life. So because of that, the player ultimately loses. And thank you. Lastly, I have used generative AI to get the games for my references, which is Banana Kong and Tomb of the Mask, and it was really helpful in making sure I know the accurate reference games that I wanted to use. Thank you for listening.